Hello and welcome to a medium special for Anfield Index. You're not getting good anything for this one, I'm afraid. It was a terrible result, a terrible performance, and a defeat to, let's be honest, a terrible team who we just can't stand. But there was so much we didn't like about it yesterday. Here to walk it through with me all as ever is David Lynch. And I think we'll just get right into this one, David, rather than sort of, beating around the bush, because it is 4 defeats on the bounce. And I did want to read you a quote on this actually as well. Liverpool had the chances to win today, but if they had, it would have papered over the cracks. They don't look like champions because this summer ensured that it isn't the same team that won it. And any defence of their title will be over by the time that they work out all these issues. Sound familiar at all?
Who wrote that? That is a brilliant summation of what we saw yesterday. I think whoever wrote that is genius.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, we could start in a million places, but we'll try and go in some sort of semblance to analyse this. So going from the first half, I mean, it started terribly. It didn't get much better. It was almost just rinse repeat from Chelsea, wasn't it? No progression, no cohesion. It was a terrible half.
Yeah, really poor. I think the first half, not a lot to kind of enjoy about it really, or be encouraged by really in the performance. It's been such a theme this season, hasn't it? These kind of slow first halves. I mean, you could actually say it was a bit of a theme last season, but of course, they largely in those first halves, it felt like last season we're kind of working out what the opposition were doing, and then they come out second half, they had it solved and go on and win. Whereas like at the moment, it's just kind of it's ponderous, and they're always giving up the first goal as well in those first halves. So it's just not an awful lot to like about them. And you just think like a game like this, Manchester United at home, you lost your last 3, you're coming into this, you need a performance, you need to feel better about yourselves. Go and tear into them. Yeah. Get the crowd going. Get things up. You get your first chance. You win a corner, say, and the crowd's going to give you a big roar if you can get a corner in the first couple of minutes. Of course, what happens in reality is, really slow, ponderous start. Manchester United straight into it, and they pull off their plan, which is obviously to get in between the left back and the centre half into that gap. That comes off straight away. They score from it, and immediately kind of it's like a balloon's been popped. So, you can say, I'd say ref was poor around that, by the way. Right. You got to stop that for a head injury. So that is frustrating, but you can't blame it on that. It's just really poor from Liverpool. And I think, like I said, they should have been the ones on in the front foot in that first couple of minutes, but they weren't. And United were ready to execute their plan, and they did straight off the bat. And so, once you go 1-0 down, you're giving United a bit of encouragement. A bit of belief because they'd already played well at Anfield the season before. They had that belief then that they could get something, and Liverpool really never put it right from there. So a shocking start. And I don't know whether it's kind of, does the manager not have to say, come on, like let's start quickly? Like Jurgen Klopp side always used to do it. And you can talk about tactics and your ideas as much as you want, but that's it. That's a feeling that starting games right. It's putting zip on your first pass. It's slamming into the first tackle and winning it. And what Liverpool did wasn't good enough, and they immediately hand United the kind of incentive there, and they didn't really surrender it for the rest of the game. So yeah, really, really poor.
Yeah, you're right. You expected. We were already in that ground thinking they are going to press, they are going to respond, they are going to want to react after what everyone's been saying about them and like ram a few words down the throat. But I said it rinse repeat. And speaking of rinse repeat, the second half just seems to be like, oh crap, we're losing. Let's just get all the attackers on the pitch and see what we can do. It was kind of the same again, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this is it. It kind of obviously they slightly redeem themselves in the second half in that they actually do create a little bit. They do look dangerous. They don't give too much away in terms of chances, you have to say, in that second half, except the kind of the one that gets scored. And they are the ones creating the chances. But again, it doesn't come through kind of like this really settled plan that's working, or a little subtle tactical tweak where, you looked at the Arsenal game, for example. I thought it was because Liverpool haven't played poorly in every game this season, by the way. I feel like that's the narrative, and I don't think that's true. You look at the Arsenal game, they're kind of sizing each other up a bit. That second half, Slot makes a brave tweak to get the midfield, Curtis Jones in particular, a little bit more advanced. And obviously Liverpool's goal comes from that, and they look the much more dangerous side in that. So you come away from that, you think, okay, well, they weren't great in the first half, but neither were Arsenal, and they were the better side in the second. They deserved to win in the end. It's a tight game. But in this one, you kind of come away, they were better in the second. But even if they'd have won the game, I still wouldn't have felt good about it. I still wouldn't have felt like, oh, brilliant performance there, brilliant tweaks from the manager, because it didn't feel like a clever tactical tweak, like saying, to move around the midfield or kind of put an attacker in a certain different space, push a fullback up or anything like that. It was just like, right, let's throw on all these brilliant individuals and hope that they come up with a moment of magic. And, they did in scoring the goal, and they did have quite a few chances, which, they could have won the game. Let's have that right as well. Let's not forget that. Could easily have won this. So no, it wasn't a kind of tactical masterclass from Amorim or anything like that. But he was so disjointed and so it just wasn't kind of, there was no coherence whatsoever, even in the best moments of the game for Liverpool. And I think, that's pretty damning, really. And it just sort of speaks to the idea that they're just not there at the moment, are they, in terms of, having either a plan A or a plan B or a plan C that works. It's just kind of, let's lash a load of attackers on and see what happens. And it nearly worked for them yesterday, but you've got to have more than that. Accepting there's all the mitigation, which I'm sure we'll probably talk about at some point, but I just thought there was going to be more than just putting forwards on the pitch and hoping it pays off.
Yeah, and just switching people around positions again, similar to Chelsea. And I mean, Arne Slot afterwards, to be mitigation and balance it, talked about, we had chances and almost a fine margins element to his press conference. For being honest and analytical, there is one thing you got to look back on. There was a number of culprits who missed big chances yesterday, wasn't there? There was big chances that we had repeatedly in this game.
Yeah, this is it. And you've got to kind of, as much as Liverpool were poor, they did well to create chances. I think that's the real positive of the game. It's the positive at Chelsea as well, by the way. I think they created kind of 2 expected goals or over 2 expected goals in both games. I mean, and actually, I think over the last 4 games, is it 7 expected goals? They've scored 7.5 expected goals. And they've scored 3. So there's an element of poor fortune in there. But obviously, Liverpool are leaving it to luck by not taking the chances and not being solid defensively. So I can't kind of use that as kind of too much of an excuse for them. But yeah, the missing chances is just being a bit of a theme in recent weeks, really. And this one was no different, really. I mean, I think Gakpo should have scored 4, really, shouldn't I? mean, I can take him kind of hitting the post on the early one from Salah, because that's a really, really good take and strike, and he's a bit unlucky. I think obviously the crosses, it would have been fortunate if that had gone in. He probably should do better with the one in the second half where he hits the post and he's inside the box. And then the one where he heads wide is a shocking miss, really. I mean, I genuinely mean this. I think you or I could have scored it. It's one of those where I'm looking at, and I mean, all I watch with this football is goals that I couldn't have scored over and over, and the quality of these players can't be doubted. But I've nodded a few in like that myself from time to time. So for a professional of Cody Gakpo's quality, that's a really, really shocking miss at a crucial moment in the game as well. And, I looked at Isak, he scuffs one, he misses a really presentable one-on-one. And, I kind of picked him out in my post-match yesterday, and I felt like, am I being a little bit harsh? But he's 26 years old and he costs 125 million. You have to hit the net. I'm sorry, I can't. I used to be a bit more understanding about some of the players that didn't cost money, like kind of crazy money. But this is a signing where you have to win now and you have to do well now. And I can't accept really that he misses those chances, because that's just not. That's not what you expect him from a player who costs that much, who should be at this point of his career in the peak of his powers. So and Slaughter said, don't have the fitness excuse now either. So. I want to see those in the back of the net. And then Mo Salah, oh my God, the chances he misses as well. It's crazy, really. I mean, we're talking about how bad Liverpool were, and they were in loads of elements of the performance. But for God's sake, just put the ball in the back of the net when you get the chance to do it. And maybe we're saying, they win the Chelsea game because they take the chances. They win this game because they take the chances. And we're saying, look, it's not clicking yet, but just try and get through, keep winning until it does click and you've spent enough time together and the team starts to show some rhythm. but they're not taking the chances, and it's coming at a really, really bad time now because Arsenal are kind of pulling away a little bit, and yeah, you've just got to put the ball in the back of the net when the opportunity presents itself. So that's probably the biggest issue right now at the moment. But yeah, it possibly would have papered over the cracks of the general performance itself, but they just had to be a lot better, really, and finishing was one of the aspects in which they were poor.
Yeah, there isn't really any defence. And you mentioned there, because Klopp talked about he's fit now. He also said in the embargo, as you know, that what do you expect from Alexander Isak goals? And it was almost reminiscent of the goal he scored against us a couple of seasons ago, the exact same position. You do expect the ball to hit the net. No real excuses. Same with Cody Gakpo there as well. So that goes on. And at the other end, a continuation, as you mentioned, we're talking about fullbacks a lot in the last few weeks, and it's coming up again in these. I mean, for God's sake, Matthias de Ligt, who's had a stinker so far for United's mocking our fullback situation and saying it is a weakness, but they struggled again in this one, didn't they?
Yeah, on that, by the way, I find that incredibly rich. Just laughable that de Ligt's coming out and saying things like that. I mean, it's disrespectful to professionals. And I tell you what, that kind of sums up the Manchester United mindset. You're talking about the champions here. De Ligt, by the way, has been useless since he's joined United. He's in a team that's useless. Just show a bit of class and respect in terms of saying stuff like that. I found that, pretty bizarre, really, and just an unnecessary dig that didn't need to be said. But I think, Liverpool have, by the way, alongside that, he as a professional doesn't need to say that, but we can talk about the fact that, fullback's been a bit of an issue for Liverpool. Yeah. I wouldn't say so much on the defensive end, by the way. I think, some of the criticism I've kind of seen around Kerkez is kind of surprised me a little bit, really. I've almost felt sometimes I'm kind of watching a different player to other people. I don't think, when people talk about how appalling he's been or whatever, I haven't seen him get torn to shreds very often, really. Have you? I mean, I thought he had a dodgy game against Burnley. He gets the yellow card, and then he gives away a foul that's not a foul at all, and the crowd's up, and the manager thinks, okay, he's probably going to get a second yellow here that he wouldn't have deserved, by the way. It wasn't like he was absolutely clownish.
Right.
But then people have kind of got it in their heads, and I'm seeing a lot of like Alberto Moreno shouts and all this kind of thing. But I don't think he's been poor defensively at all. I think his biggest weakness is a systemic weakness, and it's why Bradley's not looking too great at the moment, as well as ways of getting the ball from the back to the front, and how you're asking your fullbacks to play to be almost Trent Alexander-Arnold, or in Kirkis's case being tucked inside or whatever. So I think these players are kind of largely winning individual battles defensively, and they look kind of solid-ish. But it's just with the ball that I think the weaknesses are there. But I think, like I say, I think the Kirkes stuff is way over the top of me. He's only 21 years old. He's a really he's a big talent. He's going to get even better, and he's being asked to do things he's not comfortable with in a team. He's come to a new team as well and building all those relationships. So I feel like some of that's over the top. But of course, it is that build-up is an issue, and I think the fullbacks are a major part of that. They both look very uncomfortable when they're getting the ball in deep positions, and Liverpool have got to do something about that, because you can't just be saying, well, we didn't sign the right profiles for our defence. Well, you should have, and if you didn't, then find a way around this, because it's a repeated issue for them.
It's mental, because I know where you are in the journalist booth. It's like just over the main stand, so you can see the bench. And I was in the COP 305, so you had a good view down. And you could see Kirkes. I wouldn't say he was arguing with the bench, but there was a constant communication. You could see like remonstration each side, as in like, is he not doing what he wants to do? Is he not being allowed to do what he wants to? And as you said with the analysis, people will throw it out there blanket. Kirkes is awful. And the first thing to analyse in that sense is, in what way? Defensively or attackingly? Because defensively, he has shut down a lot of the threat, to be fair. He's quick. Anyone can get beat by a Semenyo, or Diallo can knock it past once. These are electric players. That's going to happen. But overall, he shut that down. The attacking element, we all thought he was going to be the Bournemouth boy who goes flying by, whipping the ball in, but he's largely attached at Virgil van Dijk's hip. He's not the best passing left back, if you want to call it that. That's not his game. So if you're judging on that, it just seems, I don't know, we're almost setting up, for me, Milos Kerkez for failure a little bit at the moment, or like exposing his weaknesses, exactly the opposite of what he should be doing in this game.
You're spot on. You're spot on. This is it. So, because I mean, someone said to me they were leaving yesterday, and I exposed them by saying who it was. But someone said, "Oh, I thought Liverpool would never have a worse left back than Paul Konchesky." And I just kind of like, I'm like, are we watching the same game here? Like, because like you say, defensively absolutely fine. You can get beat from time to time, but I think largely he's kind of locked down that flank. But as you say, I think the problem here is almost kind of. And you think, like, surely Liverpool haven't done this. Surely they haven't misprofiled him. Surely they watched a lot of tape. They did a lot of the statistics. He's not a deep progressor. He's not a deep progressor of the ball in the way that Andy Robertson is underrated in that aspect of the game. Kerkez cannot do that. He's the guy who gets up in the final third. He's the one who arrives onto the pass. He's not the one who makes the pass. And you can see it in his game. Maybe, by the way, he's 21, so maybe he'll get there with that. Yeah. Maybe that aspect of his game he can learn and improve. But like you say, they've got him holding Virgil van Dijk's hand for some reason, and being asked to kind of thread these little through balls as a left back, and he just looks so shaky when he gets the ball because he's just not comfortable or used to it at all. And he's someone said in the comment his body shape when he receives the ball is shocking, and I totally, what a great point that is. It's spot on. He's always facing inside because he wants to give it to Gravenberch or he wants to give it back to the centre half. He never feels comfortable going down the line or the cute little pass inside, or he's just not got that kind of craft to how he passes the ball, and that may come further down the line, or if not, which is fine by the way, players have different strengths. Liverpool just got to play to his strengths, and I can't believe the way he's being used at the moment because this can't be what he was signed for, really, and it's making him look daft at times and look panicky. And he's a really good player who I think's had loads of really good moments as well. So I feel for him a little bit there, and he's a young kid as well, so he will get better, and I already think he's actually been better than people are giving him credit for. So. I hope that gets recognised soon, really, and I hope people don't go too far in him because I think he's kind of emerged as a bit of a whipping boy at the moment, and I don't think all of that is accurate and fair, really. So, I just hope Liverpool do a better job of using him going forward.
Yeah, it's definitely one thing we hope to see. And I suppose on the other side, you will have noticed this when all the changes were coming on. Dominic Szoboszlai was literally looking at the bench going like, where am I playing? Where am I supposed to be now? And you could see someone like, I think it's Hoopsaloff, however it's pronounced, pointed to right back. And you could see him go like, you can see him from the cot mouthing like, like he did almost like look comfortable, didn't want to be there from a defensive element. You could see they started to pepper that side. But it's a big problem that the only way we can seem to progress the ball from the defence is Dominic Szoboszlai, who doesn't want to be there, understandably, has to go to right back.
Yeah, this is it. They're having to do that constantly. They're having to make these kind of wild decisions where the team ends up, absolutely mad in terms of how it looks. I mean, we'll talk about this later, no doubt, but that central midfield pairing last night, Szoboszlai right back, you have a right back at right wing, and all these things going on because you've got fundamental issues with how the team sets up. And what I find really frustrating about this is we spoke over the summer so many times about the one thing we're worried about that we'll miss with Trent Alexander-Arnold is the ability to progress the ball from the back to the front. It's like, oh, God, and I'm just an idiot. I don't know that much about football at the end of the day. I've watched a lot of it, but crikey, I'm not a football genius by any means. And I saw this coming. How did they not see this coming? Or if they felt that if they knew it was coming and they thought, well, we need to get Mark Gay in, then you had that piece of business was way more important than anyone gave it credit for then, and they needed to do it. So, or to sign Dean Howson, who could pass from centre half or whatever. I don't know how they thought they were going to get by with this current plan and no progressors of the ball in your back four for a side that wants to dominate the ball. It's just not workable at all. So I can't believe they didn't see it coming, like I say. And something should have been done about that, but it hasn't been, and Liverpool just looks so bad in that aspect of the game, really.
Yeah. 500 million nearly spent and you can't get it forward. So, just one problem to solve at the moment. And I feel bad for saying this because, like, open book, Mo Salah is my favourite player. I adore the man. He's brought so many good moments, but he looks every one of his years at the moment. And yesterday, do you remember the first touch he had when he nearly went out for a throw because it went under his foot? That kind of set the tone. And another game where bad decisions, and the miss was terrible on his left foot, wasn't it? You were just expecting to burst the net, but that is almost becoming a bit of you're almost expecting it a little bit, which is terrible to say, but it's happening regularly now.
Yeah, he's just in really poor form at the moment, isn't he? And you kind of wonder, is he going to come out of it, or is this kind of it now? Is this the decline that was always going to come at some point? But is this it? And is it going to be very, very sudden rather than a kind of slow one? And we have seen evidence of that in recent years. You think about the Fabinho drop-offs, the kind of number one example of this. That the decline can be extremely sudden. Excuse me. And your concern is with Mo Salah that this is it now. What I don't like is that people kind of absolutely laying into him and kind of really disrespectful stuff being said, and also people pretending like they had any idea this was coming. I mean, I didn't see many dissenting voices on Twitter saying that they wouldn't have given him the contract. I think when we spoke about it, we were kind of quite, what's the word? Kind of, I don't know. If they would have taken that decision, I don't think I would have been ranting and raving about it, because you can see that this is possible. But I certainly wasn't on here going, oh, God, yeah, they need to not give Mo the contract. Yeah. I mean, it would have been insane to say that about a player who was putting up the numbers he was last season. It was so good. So, yeah, it would have been crazy to do that, really. So, but no one did. So I think people should be measured in the criticism. But right. It very much looks like what we're seeing at the moment is a sort of decline it comes for everyone. I mean, I really hope that's not the case, and it's just all the change and everything that's going on around the club, and the turnovers caused problems with on-field relationships, and then his form's dipped and his confidence isn't there or whatever. I hope it's just a case of that. Yeah. But at the moment, I mean, he's missing chances you can't believe that he would miss, really, and we've never seen him miss for Liverpool. So, hopefully it's just form and he can come out of it. I really hope that's the case. But it's it was just another poor game from yesterday, and no surprise when he got subbed. Really, he deserved to be subbed, and I thought Frimpong did a better job in those latter moments.
Yeah, and I suppose the final one is with the changes, and it almost goes to the lineup. I mean, I was a bit shocked when I saw the lineup. Like, we couldn't progress the ball against Chelsea. We were pretty woeful. Like, you're almost expecting he'd had this week to come up with a master plan, maybe too dramatic slot. But so you were a bit like, hey, same lineup, same players, same position, a bit like that. And then even into the second half, no changes at half time, which I think surprised a lot of people in the stadium as well. Like, shake it up, get something going, like Curtis Jones energy, something. And then mentioning Curtis Jones, as you said, we praised him so much, and we did rightly last season, because it was tippy-tappy in the first half, and changes were made in the second half and affected the game. This season, the changes in the second half just seem to be, we're panicking a bit, just get the attackers on and we'll work out who plays where from then. It's just the changes, you're just almost concerned about when they're not made and when they are made in the second half as well.
Yeah, they are panicking. The thing is, it's not like he's looking at his first half plan and saying, oh, well, this is a small thing that isn't working. This is where we can exploit them. It's like, we can't get the ball forward consistently at all into the final third. We look really, really porous when they go on the counter-attack. So it's like, oh, the only way we're going to possibly win this game is through individual moments of brilliance. And that's not what a good football team is. That's not what a team that wins the league or wins the Champions League is. You've got to be so much more than that. They just don't. The structure on both sides of the ball just looks absolutely rubbish, to be honest. And, you just think, and so the changes are kind of feeding into that, because he's just kind of rolling the dice and seeing what happens rather than trying to tweak anything that's a good basis, because the good basis just isn't there at the moment. So, even the changes, I think, there's sometimes coming off, and he made some good subs earlier in the season, to be fair, that won games. But I think lately, it just seems to be kind of the idea of, all right, well, let's just turn this into an end-to-end game and see what we can get out of it, which is, it's not on a slot that you think of, is it? You think he's a bit more considered than that. But, yeah, it's, you know, even those aren't really working out for him at the moment, which was such a strength for him previously.
Does seem to just be everything maybe seems a struggle, but the quicker we can move on, and I'd love to believe we'll win at Frankfurt, but we'll get to that quickly. Arne Slot, and I want this measured because obviously you'll get the nonsense online about Arne Slot out, and there'll always be idiots that way. But it is right, of course, it's right to ask questions when you've lost 4 in a row. I suppose almost before this, you've lost 3 in a row. I don't know about the optics on this because you'll have seen the online tweets and reports that away in Dubai or a break instead of, maybe hatching a master plan and then just picking the same team, same setup when we're all thinking, hold on, that was disastrous against Chelsea. It's maybe not just the best optics in the world, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to kind of buy into this stuff because I just think, I don't know, like, we talk about kind of, we've got to look after these players and managers, they get asked to do so much. The job's so high stress that Jurgen Klopp had to quit in the end. It's worth remembering that. So, when you can take a break, take it. But obviously, the problem is that football fans sometimes are a little bit emotional and a bit kind of irrational at times. And so, as you say, it's kind of just the optics, really, of what it looks like when you're going on holiday when things are bad and then you get an even worse result. Then at the end of it, it's never going to be kind of looked upon particularly favourably, is it? So, but the only answer to this, really, I think, rather than going too deeply into it, you just got to start winning games again. If you start winning games again, you can go on as many holidays as you can. You can go to Ibiza on a piss up in the season if you like as well, as he did the back end of last season, and nobody cared because Liverpool won the league. So, it is. It's you can question the optics, and I think that's fair. But I also think, it's one of those where you just start winning games and everything will be fine. And a lot of the tactical concerns that we've got will probably evaporate when they start winning games. We won't be worried about holidays or this, that, or the other. Just win is the mantra, really.
Yeah, people will judge it different as they're doing in the chat panel. I suppose the one thing at the moment, and this is there's different phrasing for it. You'll know people are saying they look uncoached. They look like a bunch of strangers. I suppose the uncoached element is almost maybe in a way you could argue it's the biggest insult people could say to Arne Slot. He would bristle at that strongly, but there is just seem to be no relationship. And what are you putting that down to? Because I'll see that, it's early in the season, but he does chop and change a lot, and then he's settled, but whenever there's an issue, it doesn't seem to be fixed, like against Chelsea. What are you putting down to this uncoached, stranger-like? What would you describe it as?
I think you've got to acknowledge the turnover. I don't want to go in too harsh on the manager. I mean, he showed so many good things last season, and I do think the turnover is massive. You've ended up with a half-fit Isak who doesn't kind of know the movements of everybody else, and everybody else doesn't know his movements. Ekatike's had a good start, but even so, it's just difficult to put all these new players in at once. You've got Kirkes coming in at left back, Frimpong a change at right back. Vid's coming in and working out a new league. And so you've got everyone where you can kind of point at quite a few of them and say, even Kirkes being asked to do completely different things. It's like they've all got these little mitigating circumstances around the performances. And when you put, 4 or 5 of them in the same starting 11 at once, then that adds up to horrendous disjointedness, which is what we're seeing at times. And I think, my biggest worry is like what I said about the kind of build-up issues that Liverpool are having, and whether that is a personnel thing and they're not going to be able to solve it unless they sign a centre-half who can pass the ball. I'm really concerned about that now. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, I was maybe thinking maybe they can solve it out, midfield rotations, maybe play Curtis Jones a little bit more, which seems bizarrely reluctant to do, by the way. Yeah. But I think, that's the one thing that is kind of worrying me, that they won't be able to sort that out. That's not just a turnover thing. That's something that's going to be a problem until they sign someone new. So I'm massively concerned by that one, I have to say. But the rest of it, unfortunately, I think it's just going to take time. And you don't know when that click is going to come, but it is going to come at some point. I mean, like I said, I think people are kind of trying to say that the players Liverpool have signed are poor or whatever. I don't buy into that. I think we're just seeing quite a few of them not operating anywhere near the peak of the powers and all simultaneously being in the team. And that's causing a lot of problems. So I think a lot of the problems will be solved by just giving them a little bit more time. They will work it out in the end because, it's a very, very good squad of very good players. So, I'm convinced things will get better once they've got that time and they've trained a bit more together. But that build-up issue is the one that's worrying me, and that if he can't coach his way out of that, then I think it's going to be a really long season. And I actually think, if that click doesn't come soon enough, then I think it's going to be a long season in terms of I don't think they will win a major honour, unfortunately, because that turnover has proven too much for them.
I was going to ask you this because I didn't want this to be a show about talking about transfers because there's more important things going on at the moment. But I think Nikolai's just mentioned in there about an example like Van Hecker in January. I know we've just spent, nearly 500 million. It doesn't really matter too much the exact figure. But if we are seeing that and there's no way of coaching that at all, January window becomes important to get someone in who can progress the ball, doesn't it? Surely, or the season almost just will fizzle out.
Yeah, I agree. If it's not solvable through coaching or just play Curtis Jones more, for goodness sake, it's such an obvious solution to that. If he can't solve it, if he doesn't want to play Jones in every game, if he doesn't find a way of solving that build-up issue, then they do have to sign. And that's up to the sporting director and the manager to decide between themselves if this is an issue that can't be coached and can't be fixed. In that regard, I would like to think he could, earn his money and sort it out without signing someone. But if not, as I say, they've got to do something about it. And your kind of concern about that is that really it's like it's very Liverpool not to, and just to say, okay, well, we'll get to next season and then we'll sort it in the summer or whatever. But yeah, then the likelihood is if they don't solve it and that problem continues in that way, then they'll be going into a season. They're basically going to be writing off the season very, very early on, and saying that this isn't going to be a season where they win anything. Which, for Liverpool, off the season they'd had and the foundation they gave themselves, that's pretty disappointing, really.
True, and it's fair to fans asked. We spent 450 odd million. We're expected to write off a season. I know for the future that that's going to force questions upon them. And I mean, you mentioned Curtis Jones. It almost goes into two camps for me. There seems to be, and I think it's fair to almost ask Arne Slot this, almost an element of protected species that, and I know these players have got immense records, so I can't question that. But regardless, almost it seems of how they're playing, like Salah, McAllister, Konate stay in the team, where regardless of how they play, Ekitike, Curtis Jones, Federico Chiesa end up on the bench. It doesn't seem like a meritocracy so much at the moment, does it? If that's fair.
Yeah, I think the manager may be getting kind of confused as well by the idea of like, well, the team as a whole is disjointed, so no wonder we're kind of not seeing the best of Mo Salah or or McAllister, his fitness issue. We need to just get him there and make sure his fitness is right, and try and get him there. So he's staying loyal in that sense. But as you say, I mean, the longer it goes on, I mean, when is McAllister going to play well? It's been he's been fit for a lot of the season, really, and has been very, very poor. And you think, you can absolutely give him space for fitness issues, and you've got to get him up to full fitness as soon as possible. But you're going to keep losing games if you have him in midfield doing this at the moment, because it just isn't working for him. He's a million miles off it. And Curtis Jones, every time he's coming on, he's showing he deserves to start games. And I think he's a massive build-up solution for Liverpool that they're just ignoring at the moment as well. His ability to kind of drop into left back. I mean, how much does that suit Kirkes, by the way? You drop Curtis Jones into left back, he can build up from there. He's comfortable in the ball, very difficult to dispossess. And it allows Kirkes to pump up like right where he wants to be on the pitch. So, I think those solutions are kind of staring the manager in the face, really. And as you say, Chiesa, I did a piece on him on YouTube today talking about he's surely getting to the point now where he's knocking on the door that hard that I don't care how bad, maybe he's bad in training, but I don't care. Every time he touches the pitch, he scores or assists, and that, for a side that can't finish its dinner at the moment, you've got to kind of use him. So, I think that the manager, I understand why they always show loyalty to players that have consistently delivered for them, but it reaches a point, and we're at that point now, 4 consecutive defeats where it's not disloyal, is it, to start sort of making some changes there and giving someone like Curtis Jones or a Chiesa a chance that they've fully earned, by the way. I'm not just calling for changes for change's sake. These players have earned it for the performances this season. So, it's not just a kind of roll of the dice and let's see if that'll change our fortunes. These players are playing well. So, might be worth getting them in the team.
Yeah, I think like Ekitike is the top scorer. Curtis Jones was the best player probably when he came on yesterday. He was making things happen. And Chiesa, as you said, I think it's like 5 goals contributions in less than 200 minutes. He just makes things happen, you could see. And also, what about 3 slide tackles as well, Chase? It was just affecting the game, like making things happen. So it does seem to be, it's one I hope Arne Slot kind of gets asked it in Frankfurt tomorrow, because it does seem to be staring it in the face a little bit. And I'd be surprised if he doesn't get asked on this one, the Florian Wirtz question again, because he talked in the press conference, you were there, about, of course he's going to be asked, what do we do? And he started his answer with, we've got to play him. And yet he didn't again against, Chelsea, Everton, this a big game. Florian Wirtz is finding himself on the bench, but Arne Slot saying in his presser, we've got to play him to get the best out of him. And I actually think he did well, to be fair, when he came on, made a few things happen and gave us something. But it is just it's a bit strange around. He's got to make a decision on this Wirtz thing, surely. Like, is he a starter? Where's he going? Otherwise, there's massive questions.
I think the game itself as well kind of gave us evidence that it was the wrong decision not to start him, because one thing, this is to defend McAllister and Szoboszlai and their lack of impact on the game in central midfield yesterday, and their inability to kind of help out with build-up. I could not believe how far pushed up those two were. It was basically Liverpool's build-up plan was like Canate panicking on the ball, Gravenberch man-marked by like 3 players, and then for some reason McAllister and Szoboszlai basically pushed up to make
nothing in the middle
5 and just completely emptied the midfield. And I could not understand that plan. And look, if you're going to do that and you need someone to kind of be an attacking midfielder who then drops in and kind of can turn out or whatever, I'd rather see Florian Wirtz doing that than Alexis McAllister in the form that he's in at the moment. So I just, you weren't using, McAllister is a better central midfielder than Florian Wirtz. So, if he'd have been dropping into a 2 with Gravenberch, allowing us to progress the ball, that would have made total sense to me. But the way he was being used is that kind of, basically, honestly, we're pushing him up as like number 10s to make almost a front 5 for Liverpool. If that was the idea, they absolutely needed to play a proper attacking midfielder like Florian Wirtz. I think he would have thrived, and I think he kind of saw it, even though he comes on in that crazy formation, that 4-2-4. But he's getting on the ball. He starts to dictate things. And I think he would have done that in a normal formation. So, I think the manager kind of got that one wrong, really, on Wirtz. And maybe it is time, maybe now, after 4 defeats, to just say, right, this is my best 11. Florian Wirtz, we need him to get there now. We need him to adapt. We just need to speed up the process of getting him up to speed. Just play him and play him. And, I'd rather see those results than kind of leaving him in and out and then, getting a bit of a rubbish performance and just going with a kind of 4-2-4 at the end, all panicky. Because I think he's showing loads of encouraging signs as well. We've said this a lot, I think, is that, I don't doubt for a second he's going to get there, because I just think you can see already he's got moments of real class in him. And I mean, he plays a role in the goal that Liverpool do score yesterday, and I thought very bright in moments as well. So just play him. Let's just get him through this and get that kind of settled team, get it there as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think everyone's feeling that way a little bit. Even Ekitike and Isak together, I think people are calling for that. Chiesa minutes, let's just see a few things different. Although we're asking for a few things different, it's a hell of a week coming up now. I mean, Eintracht Frankfurt away, Brentford away. I mean, let's be honest, those are 2 well-coached sides, if you know your Bundesliga and obviously what we see in the Premier League. This sounds terrible to say, but because they are well-coached and they're well-established systems, them 2 teams are licking their lips right now, aren't they?
Yeah, you've got to say it's a little bit. These look like tough games. I mean, 2 back-to-back away games, of course. So difficult. Liverpool haven't looked particularly good on the road. I mean, it is kind of mad, actually, when you think about it. It's kind of 3 away games on the bounce, 1 home game, and then 2 away games again on the bounce. They're in the midst of a really tough run and playing poorly on top of it. So these are going to be really, really tricky ones. And I think with Frankfurt, you'd say, obviously, they're not in great form this season. They are conceding goals, which is encouraging for Liverpool. You know, given Liverpool can't seemingly hit a cow's backside with a banjo at the moment. Hopefully, this is the game where it starts to come in, and it seemingly they will get chances. But you know, the atmosphere over there is going to be good, and it's going to be a tricky one. But and then you follow that up with Brentford, which has always been a tricky one away from home for Liverpool as well. And you know, their long throws and set pieces and everything that they bring to the party, all the things that Liverpool don't kind of like. It just looks a really tough week, doesn't it?
I mean, I was going to ask you about this because I don't think we've had any updates. We might get it tomorrow from Arne Slot. It could get even tougher because we're still waiting on news for Ryan Gravenberch, aren't we? He limped off in this one.
Yeah, hopefully nothing too bad. Obviously, you managed to play on with it a bit. It's just a tight turnaround, but you always think, you know, if he can't play, who's the direct replacement for him in that squad? And if McAllister was in form, you think, oh, he can do a job for a few games. Absolutely, he's more than capable of doing that. But he's not in form. He's not even close to in form, is he? So, you know, that would be a real concern for Liverpool, you'd have to say. So, yeah, no update really to kind of give on that. Just fingers crossed. I think they'll be fit for these.
Yeah, you have to really pray. And I suppose it's weird because Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, not the greatest at the moment, but they absolutely pumped Galatasaray, didn't they, in that first game? I think it was 5-1 overall. So I'm kind of mixed. Like, is maybe an escape to Europe beneficial or the worst thing?
Yeah, we'll see. Ask me at full time, mate. I'm not really sure, to be honest. It's this is it. I think, you know, there's going to be chances there for Liverpool, isn't there? By the looks of kind of they are struggling defensively this season, so that is encouraging. And Liverpool, for all the weaknesses we talked about, they're still creating chances. I mean, it's mad, really, that they struggle so much to get the ball into the final third safely, and yet they're creating kind of 2.5 expected goals a game. So if you keep that up, the finishing's going to level out. It's going to sort itself out. Your big worry is that can they keep a clean sheet or even just concede 1 goal, you know, at the moment. That's the big worry. So, you know, I keep going into every game thinking the click's going to come. Maybe it's this week. Maybe it's the next game or whatever. You know, maybe this week's the one. We don't know, but it needs to be certainly defensively at least. And I think the attack thing will kind of fix itself eventually, won't it? Because they are creating chances and they've got real quality players on the pitch as well. So I'm sure the goals will come. Hopefully, it can come with a clean sheet as well.
Yeah, but fingers in everything crossed. I mean, you don't want to be thinking about this, but you have to look at the pattern we're seeing at the moment. We've lost to Galatasaray. I mean, if it's not the result we want in Germany, there's actually real pressure on Liverpool qualifying because top 8 is obviously where you want. And obviously, I'm not saying first makes much of a difference anyway now, but if you're in that second bed of, you know, up to 16, it's a 2-legged playoff, isn't it, as well? So if they don't, you know, a bad result, there's pressure on us.
Yeah, this is why it was kind of a disaster to lose to Galatasaray in a game you should not be losing, because you were immediately then under pressure in terms of the group, really, and ensuring you don't end up in that playoff, because that would be really unhelpful to be in that. And it's why kind of after yesterday's game, when I was doing my post-match, was saying, if these results continue, if the performances continue, you could talk about turnover, the mitigating circumstances around this season, but it's going to be very, very soon that you start to say, Liverpool aren't going to win anything this season, because it's so easy to you can't win the title in October, you can't win the Champions League in October, but you can put yourself out of it. You can end up 6 or 7 points behind Arsenal. You can end up putting yourself in that kind of 2-legged thing and not playing well in the Champions League, and then you're fighting to salvage it. It's very, very easy to lose control this season. So that's why it's so important they start putting performances in and getting results as well. So that absolutely has to happen. They need a win, and they need, that need is even greater now off the back of 4 defeats. Like, the serious questions are going to start to be asked if they keep losing games at the end of the day.
And I suppose instead with that phrasing, serious, with that in mind and everything we've talked about, is your gut telling you there will be serious changes for this? Because, I mean, Mo Salah did come off at the end, but you wonder, like, are we going to see another Chelsea lineup for persistence or players in that we want? What are you thinking for this one?
I think you're surely going to see Wirtz and Ekatike start this one. I'd be amazed if you don't, to be honest. I think maybe some of the thinking there is, look, they're coming up against German opposition. They know what they're about. They've thrived in that league. So let's see if we can get them into that game and get a really good performance out of both of them. So I would expect those two at a minimum to be the changes. But I'm sure there'll be other tweaks elsewhere. We'll see. On Gravenberch, I don't want to see Alexis McAllister anywhere near this one, to be honest. So you talk. I'd like to see kind of 3 changes at a minimum, and we'll see about it beyond that, really.
Yeah, just a response of some sort, and then we'll flip forward to Saturday night. I mean, Keith Andrews and Brentford will just be saying, "Win set pieces, getting it in the box. We'll be sound, lads." That'll be their team talk, essentially, won't it?
Yeah, because that's an easy way to beat Liverpool at the moment. So, Liverpool have got to. The thing is, what's frustrating is that Liverpool they've had games where they defended set pieces really well this season.
Yeah.
You think of the Arsenal game, they didn't really look flustered at all. I don't think Arsenal really created much from set pieces in that game, and a lot of the other games really they've been absolutely fine from set pieces, but they've just had games where they've not been very good at all. So. They need to have one of the better ones against Brentford. They need to be really sharp on that. And it's very, very interesting to me how much Slot is mentioned in his press conference and mentioned, post-match press conference, mentioned in his pre-match press conference, not just in the open section, but in the embargo as well. Banging on about set pieces. And you just start to wonder, I mean, the amount he's mentioning it, is there a little bit of pressure there on Aaron Briggs? Maybe I wonder. He can't be happy, and he isn't happy. I can tell that they're still conceding set pieces, and they are just not scoring from them either. So you don't have to be Arsenal level, but you can't justify being as bad as Liverpool are from set pieces. They're conceding them at a rate they shouldn't be, and they aren't scoring them at all. And if you've got a dedicated set piece coach, that isn't good enough at all. So they have to work that out. Liverpool, everybody else in the Premier League is getting these free goals from set pieces, and Liverpool just aren't. They're giving them away. It's an easy way to set about losing games in the Premier League, particularly with how much focus there is on set pieces at the moment. Like I say, you don't have to be Stoke. You don't have to be experts at them. Just stop being absolutely awful would be a really good start, and a sense that Slot is feeling like that as well.
Yeah, set piece, you're right. You just keep getting to mention it. And I suppose for these two as well, it's never as simple or as complex of this. But the big thing when I'm watching at the moment that I keep asking, I know WhatsApp you, like, what is the actual plan here? What are we trying to achieve? Where's the positional play? Where's the build-up? Like, how are we trying to progress it? All these things. We are really looking for these 2 games, even if it doesn't work out perfectly. We want to be able to say, right, I get what he's trying to do. Okay, maybe he's moved someone deeper. We need to kind of see that in this too, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, there have been moments, and I think, again, we've got to stress, haven't we? Like, not every moment of every game has been absolutely dreadful. And I do feel like that's, there's all this talk about the late winners early in the season and Liverpool getting away with it. There were loads of good aspects about those performances, I thought, that are being swept away by the fact that the results and performances haven't been great recently. We can't forget that some aspects have been good, but how long do we have to wait now till we start to see kind of consistently good performances and performances you can get behind? Not even if the results are poor, but because results can be poor at times, and you didn't always get the result you wanted last season, but the performances were generally there. And they're just not there at the moment. So, you just need to see something slightly more convincing. But you also need to just see the result as well, because you cannot keep losing. You can't keep losing. You can't be Liverpool manager and lose 6-7 on the bounce. That's not feasible. So they need to start winning some games as well. And, the 2 go hand in hand. If Liverpool start performing better, they'll start to win more games. So, that needs to start happening now, really.
It does need to start happening now. And people have different definitions and people will talk about others overreacting. But if it's bad results, 6 on the bounce, it's pretty hard to hide away from calling it anything else but a crisis. A blip doesn't cover 6 on the bounce, does it?
Yeah, no, I don't care who you are. No Liverpool manager can be losing that many games on the bounce. And there won't be the mitigating circumstances that Klopp had of kind of when he lost 6 home games on the bounce, but no crowds in, injuries like you wouldn't believe. He's putting in kids at centre half. So you could totally accept that it's very, very possible at the elite level to lose games when that's happening to you. Slot doesn't have that. So, there's been mitigation in some of these games. There's been, you can see maybe a bit of misfortune in moments, but that only goes so far. You got to start performing and start winning at some point. So, I'm not saying slot out or, God, we've got to ask questions of the manager or anything like that. But if you start getting to 6 or 7 defeats on the bounce, you're definitely getting into that territory because it's Liverpool Football Club with all the talent they've got on the pitch. Even, you should be winning the odd one by just getting lucky at times. So, they can't continue to lose without it getting to the point where you start questioning things. But obviously, we aren't there yet.
We aren't. It does feel a big week. And I suppose the final bit I wanted to ask you, because timing's everything in football. It just so happened that the Steven Bartlett and Jurgen Klopp interview dropped this morning. We all knew it was coming, didn't we? And the quotes that have been serialized. I don't know about you. I mean, I've watched it. I've seen the quotes. Was there anything really that juicy or unexpected that came out? I didn't really when you sort of think, I'm watching a man I adore and I'm listening to what he says. I'm intrigued. I'm hanging on every word. And at the end of 3 hours, just a shrug like Alan Partridge almost a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've not listened to it. I'm kind of I've seen a lot of the quotes and the best bits kind of thing. I just refuse to listen to Steven Bartlett, to be honest. So I've not put the time into listening to it. But yeah, I don't think I will judge him by the bits I've seen because it doesn't seem like he gave anything new away. I thought the potential for the kind of juiciest part we might hear was maybe what he said about Michael Edwards, but he kind of took a really civil stance on that really and didn't give too much away, did he? So I think that speaks to Jurgen being a class act as well. So probably the right decision not to kind of cause a war or say there was any discord there, although I think we all know there's a little bit, albeit that's the nature of working in sport as well, by the way. It shouldn't be overblown that they were worst enemies or anything, but he didn't give too much away, did he? And a lot of kind of stories and things we know of and have heard about before, really. So I maybe thought there was going to be more in there myself. I'll admit that.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't. If you haven't watched it, we didn't really do a good job of advertising that. But yeah, we'll leave it to you if you want to make that decision. And final one's a 2-part, and you're going to shout at me afterwards for that, but we'll deal with that afterwards. This game coming up, you can pick the lineup and you can pick the setup as well. What are you picking in the changing room? What are you telling them?
So in terms of the 11, I think. God, I mean, there is. I really want to keep picking the same back five and saying that just surely there's some way to kind of coach that build-up into not being as bad as it is at the moment. I don't believe they were so reliant on getting a ball-playing centre-half, because if they were, why didn't they solve this? So, for continuity, I think the same back four, I'm kind of happy with that. I know people said Frimpong played well when he came on, and he did, but just trying to get Bradley somewhere. I think Frimpong's a good sub. I think he will get his games, and I'm just trying to get continuity, as I say. In midfield, hopefully Gravenberg's fit. I will put Szoboszlai and Wirtz alongside him, because I think I've said before, that's the midfield that played against Atletico, which was probably the best performance of the season so far. So, and I think Wirtz has looked bright when he's come on. So just ride that wave, and you've got to get him there. And then the front line, goodness me. I mean, I would happily see Chiesa start on the right hand side, give Mo a rest, see a bit more of Chiesa. I think Ekitike's got to start this one in the centre forward role, and then on the left, you've probably got to go with Gakpo. And again, he's not in the best of form, but he scored 2 in 2. He scored while he was on international duty, and hopefully he won't miss a chance as big as that one that he did miss against United ever again. So. But yeah, it's tough to pick a team, isn't it? When it kind of feels like the whole team, the whole squad's not really in in form, but it's got to turn at some point, surely.
Yeah, I think Yanis and others are putting it there. I would have, being honest, I'd have Salah and McAllister straight out the lineup, and obviously I adore those players, but you just can't make a case to keep them. And as you said, Ekitike's got to come back in. The fullbacks, I wouldn't mind giving Frimpong something a bit different, even just that electric pace to try and give something. Chiesa, Curtis Jones, if he's not in one of these starting lineups, should be banging on the manager's door, on Sunday morning or whatever, surely. But it's got to change in some way. And
yeah, sorry, I'm probably harsh on Curtis Jones not putting him in, really, especially after I said about he's absolutely deserving to be in there. So yeah, I mean, particularly if Gravenberch's not fit, maybe you go with the Jones, Szoboszlai, Wirtz there. But you're right, Jones. He probably should be. He's got to be in the team, really, for me. Actually, I've made a mistake there and not putting him in. He absolutely deserves to be. And as you say, I think Chiesa is probably in that sort of set. And yeah, I wouldn't be against Frimpong either. I think you're right to say that. I think he probably does deserve his chance. I'm just thinking maybe continuity of the back line, but even then, he's just like, well, something's got to change. Something's got to make it better. They've got to find a way of making this work because it isn't at the moment. So maybe Frimpong will help in some way.
And even then, as we're talking, it's still, I think so many people want to see, as much as Isak's struggling, Ekitike and Isak together, because that did look quite nice for a period as well. But you can't start all these players, as we're going to have 6 in attack, as we said, like this game as well at Chaos. So
I'm sure they will by the end of the second half, to be honest.
Probably will, yeah. Szoboszlai right back. Yeah, Gravenberch's fit. He'll be centre half. We'll have to see, won't we? There we go. But there we go, people. There is 1,000,001 things to talk about. There is 1,000,001 things for Arne Slot to talk. Thank you for all your comments in the chat panel. Hopefully you found this cathartic. There wasn't too much madness going on there. Hopefully we see a result on Wednesday. All it leaves me to say, as ever, for answering all the questions, going through it in depth, it is much appreciated as ever, David.
No, thank you very much. I feel better after that one. Nice to talk it out.
Indeed. And ladies and gents, on Monday, the 20th of October, that was a Media Matters for Anfield Index.